Hey there, friends. Welcome. Welcome to the episode 4 breakdown of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. There we go. Welcome to my guests, Grey Waste Tim, a.k.a. Bobby Boucher. Bobby Boucher. And Estella Graves, a.k.a. Daenerys Targaryen, just, reeling out the cosplays as usual. This looks like Great Grass Sea
Thank
Khaleesi.
you. Yeah, this is Dothraki Khaleesi. This is my first time actually really wearing this costume. So, some exclusive, cosplay content for y'all.
Exclusive content. New shit, new shit. So, is wearing that dragon on your shoulder, is that hideously uncomfortable? It looks uncomfortable.
I know this little Drogon is so fun, but he is like sliding everywhere. So, we're going to say hi to him for now, and then we're going to just say goodbye and toss him across the room.
Yeah.
So,
Too bad.
gently yeet him across the room. So,
Damon jumped up just in time. I was about to say we both have our little dragons.
Well, that's the
oh, lovely.
well. Damon can stand in. We have, we always have room for real life animals on the show, but yeah, we usually do skip the the uncomfortable cosplay gets worn for about 5 seconds and then we ditch it. But let's bring in the chat and talk about what is almost certainly the best episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms so far. Really, not a lot. This will be, by the way, this will be my only coverage of the episode this week, so get it all right here. I'm working on some Ice and Fire stuff this week. I have to make a theory about why Dany is half Blackwood. It's been bugging me for years, and I'm gonna do it. No one's done it. I'm gonna do it. But yes, this is our episode coverage. This episode, it didn't have a lot of deep symbolism kind of stuff. We didn't see Odin wander out onto a field, but we did see basically the climax, the high point of the act, besides the joust itself. Like this moment where Baelor walks out and takes Duncan's side. It's one of the most epic moments that George has written. We've all been waiting to see it on the screen. And so basically now you guys who haven't read Dunk and Egg know why we love it so much, in part, and why we were so fired up to see this, in part just because of this moment, and because almost all of the High Lords and Kings are such bad people, and we finally have a good person. We finally have someone doing the right thing when it's hard, a.k.a. Brienne, no chance, no choice, a.k.a. Dany, risking everything to free the Unsullied, Jon Snow letting the wildlings through and feeding them despite all the controversy. Like, these moments that are most powerful in A Song of Ice and Fire are when people do the right thing when it's hard. George loves that. And so here we are with Baelor and this epic moment. There's a bit of a contrast of ruling philosophies between Maekar and Baelor on display that we can talk about. And so, yeah, we're going to go through the whole episode and episode explained. But before we do that, Tim, you have just put out a YouTube video about an hour ago, and I'm going to put out a YouTube video as soon as this stream is over to explain the Crone Goddess. But Tim, what did you just put out earlier today?
Okay, so yes, thank you. Today I put out my Future of Dunk and Egg video, examining the possible plot lines for season 4 and beyond. As I said, season 3, we got a good 3 seasons with the 3 stories that we have out, and George has given Ira Parker summaries for another 10 to 12 stories, he stated. So I went through all of that, picked out all of the little tidbits of information of things that we need to have expanded on, looked at the titles for upcoming Dunk and Egg novellas, went and found some quotes from George, went and found a bunch of things in the story to back it up, and I laid out some possible future plot lines that could happen in Dunk and Egg's purview. They fill in the gaps in the 50-year history that we'll have with these two, and they are gaps that need to be filled in. They cover events and characters that have been named but haven't actually appeared yet on page, and we need to learn more about them and exactly what happened. And it seems like it's through Dunk and Egg's eyes that we might get that.
Indeed. So that is ripe fare. Check that one out. I think everyone watching this stream will be excited for that. And I'll have a nice little short video, like 19 minutes, explaining both the Crone as a goddess figure and how she's echoed in characters like Stoneheart and Old Nan and various other people, as well as deciphering the prophecies that the Crone gave last week. I know I'm a whole week behind, but I do have something new and fresh for you that I don't think anyone has said. I told Estella about this, and it involves Rohan Weber. Some of the stuff that the soothsayer was saying might imply something about the Rohan Weber disappearance mystery, and so check that out. Like I said, I'm going to press go on that right when this stream ends, so you guys can check out my video and Tim's video. And Estella, last week you put out the big All the Targaryens Alive at This Time video. So lots of content for y'all, and you can find Tim and Estella's channel linked in the description below the video. So yeah, this was the best episode so far, was it not? Tim, I'll start with you. What do you think? What would you rate this one?
I'm going with a solid 9.5. Are there no true knights among you? I mean, I know some people are complaining that it was undercut by Otho Bracken farting, that this is still juvenile humor, instead of just the line that Otho Bracken says in the book, which is, "I know you not, boy." But I actually think this is a great introduction to the Brackens, because it really lays out why nobody likes the Brackens, why everyone is so Team Blackwood. And before we move too far on, I haven't answered your question of why is Dany half Blackwood? Well, it's one last middle finger from Bloodraven to the Brackens beyond the grave, because isn't it convenient that the prince that was promised descends from both sides of Bloodraven's family, right? Targaryen and Blackwood. Isn't that interesting? But, you know, that's none of my business.
That's not the angle that I took on it, Tim. I'm going for like Dany endgame Weirwood Net stuff, but yes. And of course the Brackens.
Real convenient.
Well, I did like the Brood of Bracken cameo. It's in fitting with the character. I mean, this is the kind of world this is. It's a dirty world. People make jokes like this, and if you have a problem with it, go to a freaking Ren fair once in your life, okay? So, Estella, so did you give it a number, Tim?
Yeah, I said 9.5.
Okay, Estella, I'll go to you. And then we'll do super chats, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I would also give it like a 9 or a 9.5. I thought this episode was fantastic. It's a little detailed, but I really liked that when we kind of open on Dunk in prison, I like that he tries to pet and befriend the rat, that is his first instinct, whereas like I feel like a lot of people would be like, I need to eat this rat or something. It really was a great like tiny little character moment, and I'm sure we'll get into more of those throughout this discussion. But yeah, I really liked that moment as just a immediate character building moment. And then on the Bracken as well, I was watching it with my partner, and I told him, I was like, see, you can tell that George does not like the Brackens, that he is a Blackwood stan, just because anytime we see the Brackens, it's always someone doing something just awful, ridiculous, dishonorable, you know, just being a jerk. But I agree. I did really like that cameo as well. So.
Well, I would give this one a 10. I'm going to go ahead and say it was perfect. There's really nothing I would change about it. I think this was the moment that they needed to nail, and they nailed it. And honestly, like Peter Claffey's speech, it was moving. Like you got to think about him performing that speech. Like this gets into like stage oratory. He's out there in a field. He's got all these actors. Literally everyone working on the show is gathered around so that he can do his lines. Think about the pressure of that. Think about the importance of the scene. And his performance was amazing. Like, it just, I mean, your hair, I'm getting the hairs raising right now. I just got out of the shower, so I need a little volume. But the point is, yeah, it was incredible. The performance of the actor was incredible. Egg also, Dexter got to do his kind of best acting. You know, he's been doing a good version of the, you know, popping off at the mouth as a tart little prince. Actually, this made it worse. But the scene in the cell with Dunk was pretty incredible. He's showing, you know, he's acting like a prince now, but also a 9-year-old boy showing remorse, and he's sort of mixing both of those at the same time. So pretty great. Oh, there's the rest of Tim's studio. I was dying to see what that corner looked like, Tim. So yeah, I think this was great. I think the acting was incredible. You know, I really liked the Aerion Baelor scene where they're all debating it, and Makar's there. You know, what the is a trial of 7? Somebody was smart in the comments said The fact that Arion knows about a trial of 7 and Maekar doesn't suggests that Arion is studying his Maegor the Cruel history, and doesn't that make a lot of sense?
Yeah, actually,
that is a great point to point out.
I was waiting for us to get to this. Yeah. So last week I had talked about how I was a little disappointed that about them not going with the bright color direction for Arion. But now, after seeing this trial of 7, realizing, oh yeah, the last time we know of a trial by 7 happened was with Maegor. And this was pointed out to me by friends of the channel from Direwolf City, Gray Area and I Eat Zebra. With the short hair look, it seems like this version of and the black and red rather than the bright oranges and yellows, like this version of Arion seems to be like an edgy teenager cosplaying as Maegor.
And so the chat, of course, is reminding me now. I don't know how I forgot this. He named his son Maegor, in fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
dress it up like the biggest villain. I mean, who does that really, right?
And with his hair too, I saw the wig technicians talking about how for Finn Bennett's wig, they added all these kind of little like flicky, spiky little tails to try to look almost like dragon tails or dragon scales. And it's like that combined with his weird little tongue flick with the blood last episode. This man really is, thinking that he's a dragon. That is his persona. He wants to be a dragon so bad.
I'm really glad they didn't drop that bit about, Egg saying, oh, he literally thinks he's a freaking dragon in human flesh. And the whole thing about putting the knife between his legs and abusing him and stuff. So glad they didn't drop that. It's not just that he's spoiled. And how about him making the Lord Ashford pick up his nut that he threw across? I mean, he's all like,
well,
yeah.
The mother says that dragons are ornery because they have all them teeth but no toothbrush.
There's no toothbrush big enough for him. So real quick before it goes by, we did get some super chats at the beginning. So let me thank and answer. Old Irish proverb: to be rich in friends is to be poor in nothing. Dunk's fortune teller prophecy has already been fulfilled. That's cool. I like that, Tina. Friends are definitely an actual, a form of wealth that people have referred to. So that works for me a little better than the pages in the white book explanation. I will get into that in my Crone video that's coming out right after. I'm glad y'all are still interested in this since I'm a week late with this video. Won't be able to make live due to work. Read the book this week. This is a spoiler, but what? Okay, well that is a spoiler. I'll try to remember to come back to that. But no, just to answer your question, I think we've got to take the story as given. Best Thrones episode since Viserys sat the throne to defend Rhaenyra. Yeah, that's actually a good comparison. That was kind of the feeling. I mean, that was, say what you want about episode or season 2 of House of the Dragon. Some things good, some things bad. That was an incredibly epic moment. And it was delicious because it was still hypocritical. It was epic for Viserys to do it, but they're still propping up a giant lie at the same time. So it was very complex and delicious. This one was more unambiguously heroic, but yeah, that's a good comp. The armor in the show has been so good. Lionel's horns only put to shame. Oh yeah, no, I wish Estella has held. Well, you held a prop version of the antler crown.
I did. It was a very flimsy prop version, though. They were very scared people were going to break it. I would hope the real crown would be a little more sturdy.
Yeah, I mean, if Lionel's going to get, sauced and let people wear it, it needs to be sturdy. Yeah. But, and then they yelled at you for touching it.
They did. They were like, be careful. They had handlers for the crown off screen from the photography, so. They
could have just made a nice one and then they wouldn't have had to pay handlers, but whatever.
Right.
Weird, but Baelor is a Targaryen assimilation ideal. His end somehow seems... okay, guys, you're asking me... I can't answer... Well, these are spoiler questions.
I'll have to put a pin in that one.
I will. Now, I will say, I did... The other reason I'm not going to make a produced video this week is because I made a Baelor video a few weeks ago, and I said all the things that I would say about Baelor this week in that video. So if you want full breakdown on his character and why it's important, and some of the butterfly effects in the future. I dealt with all that. Tim, is your cat rocking your camera? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, it is. It is Damon. Damon's coming and going. He keeps bumping up against things.
Well, you named him Damon, so that's what you get. I will take Sir Duncan's side. Was so beautiful. Also, what do you guys think about that scene with Sir Arlen? Well, it wasn't a scene. His face just kind of popped up in the middle of the knightly vows. I took that to be, and thank you, yeah, thank you. I took that to be a nod to the fact that he never knighted Dunk. And he's like, because Dunk is hearing the vows and he's thinking of Sir Arlen, and Arlen's like, like, is that how you took it?
Yeah, it was kind of like him smiling down on him, but him also being like, well, you're in it now. Good luck.
Yeah, it's a little bit of that too.
I like the one interpretation was Arlen being like, I'll do it, but I'm not saying all those words.
And by the way, my summer haul video from about a year ago has definitely been raging lately. But if you haven't seen that and you want a full exploration of, again, the butterfly effects of Dunk and everything that happens here in the future, I definitely went into that in the summer haul video pretty hardcore. So check that out if you want more on that. So yeah, I think this episode was basically perfect and wonderful, and it was just very moving. It was very linear. It focused on the story. There wasn't a lot of extra stuff going on. I really liked how the Fossaway betrayal was done. That was the other thing I really wanted to see done right, and it was done marvelously. Riding out with that incredible copper apple armor. I mean, that really looked great. And then he's all, oh, you need 2 more, by the way, because I fight with the accusers. And I want to make sure everyone catches this. He says to his cousin, Raymond, he's like, oh, well, he wouldn't have given me a lordship except that it thwarted Sir Duncan. So he intentionally joined Dunk's side so that Dunk would be relying on him, and then took that as a bargaining chip to Arion and said, I can screw Dunk and leave him without a team member if you give me this lordship. So this was all, it wasn't like Arion tempted Stefan. This was all Stefan's scheming from the beginning. He set Dunk up to trust him and then deliberately betrayed him. So it is just a really abominable, dishonorable act. And I'll turn this over to you guys, but yeah, what did you think of Sir Stefan and the way they handled it?
I guess I will. Yeah, because when he's telling Dunk, like, you shall not die on my watch, like, you get a sense, like, if you didn't read the book and you had no idea about Sir Stefan's, like, true corrupt nature, you get the sense of, like, hey, maybe we were wrong about this guy. Maybe, yeah, he's kind of a jerk to his cousin, but when things are when the time calls, he's going to come up to bat. And then it's like, then we hear the reveal, and it's like, oh no, my immediate hatred of you was completely well founded. And it's something I've pointed out too before in other streams, that every time we hear about a bad Fossaway, it always ends up being a red apple Fossaway. Stefan is the first time. Sir Franklin Flowers of the Golden Company, he is a product of R-Word. His biological father is a red apple Fossaway. Then there's a member of the Band of Nine who is also a Fossaway. We haven't been given confirmation on whether he's from Cider Hall or New Barrel, but assuming he's a red apple too, then we're 3 for 3 on the bad red apples. It seems like the only good apples are coming from New Barrel.
Well, that's because George grew up in the days of Red Delicious apples, which are terrible, and he didn't have the Honey Crisps, so he associates red apples with bad and green with good. This is what happens when you're old. So thank God we now have Honey Crisps and a bunch of other things. So
we got the Fuji. I was going to say, it was really interesting to me that, Stefan kept kind of invoking this idea of, like, our house is ancient, we were here before the dragon house, all this stuff. And then with his armor, it's kind of this, like, coppery bronze armor, which kind of invokes, like, pre-Andal. Like, it makes me think of, like, the kind of, the armor of, like, Runestone.
Good call. I thought of that too, yeah.
Yeah. this kind of like coppery armor, but then it's covered in fruit, and it makes me think of Steely Pate's, kind of thing about like, I make good armor, I don't make armor that's covered in queer foreign fruits and things. And so it's this kind of combination of like, he's trying to be like, oh, our house is ancient, I'm honorable, blah blah blah, but then you have this little hint too of like almost new money, flashy, and then being like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna sell you out. So I thought those visual cues there were very good at building the character.
Steely Pate only eats steak. All fruit is foreign, like fruity, fancy stuff. Yeah, just steak.
Yeah, no flashy, fruity armor with scroll work. We don't like that here.
He's like, vegetables. Puh.
Yeah.
And I did, by the way, look into the mythology of like Wayland the Smith and a couple other Smiths to see if there was any inspiration that George was working with Steely Pate. I didn't really find any correlations. The story of Wayland the Smith is absolutely crazy and has nothing to do with Steely Pate. Really, George's Smith god is very straightforward. He is just a craftsman. He represents workers. He represents all workers. I think really the speech that Septon Maribald gives about how the smith could be the cobbler or the carpenter or anybody else perfectly explains the idea of archetypes in general and how the Faith of the Seven is designed to function. And so I think that kind of speaks for itself. However, the crone, very much inspired by some mythological goddesses such as the Norns and Hecate. Those are the two that I found. So my video is going to have a little breakdown of Norns and Hecate as well as the prophecies, and I had a lot of fun with that. So, but yeah, this Fossaway betrayal, it stunk. It stunk to high heaven. It was intentional. It was scheming. And I thought what was interesting is, I talked about the brothers fighting as an archetypal frame here, and we've got both their cousins, but close enough. They're two Fossaway branches fighting, and then Maekar and Baelor now are on opposite sides of the battlefield. But they're on opposite sides of the battlefield because Baelor is doing the right thing. That was his prerogative, and that put him on the opposite side as his brother Maekar. And here it's the opposite. Whereas Stefan betrays Dunk and then switches sides and ends up on the other side. And then you have Raymond stepping up, to do the right thing. So it's just a lot of right and wrong with these brothers. And you see, is it better to be loyal to family or loyal to ethics? I would always say ethics. But yeah. Not the Tullys. Tullys, it's family, duty, honor. Honor's third. Distant third after family. I have always found that to be suspicious. Tim, your thoughts?
Which is interesting because the Tullys, the Blackfish leaves. He has a disagreement with his brother, and he goes to the Vale. So family took a real back seat in that one. But yeah, I see. You're talking about, Maekar is in the well, I have to uphold the family, even though the family is in the wrong. He is in that bad position of having, feeling like you have to defend your son, even though your son is clearly guilty. And that is always a hard place to be in, because it's, no matter how toxic some of your family members can be, for some, sometimes it's hard to turn that off. It's hard to turn your back on family and go for a found family or even complete strangers. I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Go ahead, Estella.
I was going to say too, and I loved that you can see it's difficult for Maekar, when he's leans in and he's like, are you just doing this because you're being a coward? What are we doing here? And then he's like, no, I'm not doing it because of that at all. And we're all just like, okay, Arion. And then, and afterwards you see him just grab him and he's like, get over here. He's just like, oh my gosh, my son. It's very begrudgingly, it's very what have you gotten yourself into? And now I have to defend you, even though I kind of don't want to. I thought it was a very good way at portraying the kind of begrudging father in that scene of I will defend you because you're blood, but ultimately I am pretty pissed at you.
So what this comes down to, and this moment to me really encapsulated the different philosophy of Maekar and Baelor. The reason why Baelor did what he did and Maekar did what he did is because they have different worldview, different philosophies of rule. And I need people to recognize this, okay? So Maekar says, what are you doing? He attacked my son. He laid hands on the blood royal. So in Makar's opinion, we need to rule through fear. Anyone who lays hand on the royal blood must be punished, because if we're not consistent about that, then people will think they can put their hands on the royal family, and so we've got to show everyone we're above them. That is what he is saying. That is, at the end of the day, like, as critical as he wants to be of Aerion and disappointed, he is taking Aerion's side, and he has got the same philosophy as Aerion, which is ruling through fear and intimidation. Baelor does not believe in that. Baelor believes in ruling through consensus. He believes in justice. And what he understands is that if the Targaryens are seen to be unjust tyrants, like they've been talking about here at the fair, then they lose their legitimacy of rule. They undermine the security of their claim to the throne because, by the way, you don't have dragons to intimidate everyone and to rule through fear. So what Baelor is doing, he's not only doing the right thing because he took the knightly vows too. And that's what Baelor says. He defended the weak. All knights are supposed to defend the weak. That's what he did. So I'm taking his side because he's in the right. Even more than that, he understands that this is a test of the system. We have an abusive prince abusing a woman, and we have a knight stepping in to defend the weak. And so if the Targaryens are going to show everyone that we're going to punish the knight and protect the prince, then why should anyone follow the law? Why should anyone follow the rules or do anything? And yes, all any appearances to real life are purely coincidental and due to the fact that George Martin understands how people work. But yes, if the rich and powerful people in society are shown that they don't have to follow the law and they can get away with any level of corruption, then why should the small people, the small folk, the regular folk, the working people, why should they follow the law? Why should they feel invested in the idea of the Westeros as a cohesive nation? Like, you can't do it. It's a test of the system here at Ashford Meadow, and that is why Baelor does what he does, in my opinion. And I'll turn that over to you, Estella.
And yeah, I was going to say, and to go back what we talked about a little bit earlier, Finn Bennett, the actor who plays Aerion, said that, when he attacks Tanzel, he's doing what in his mind he thinks his father would do, what he thinks, his house should be doing. And obviously it's misguided, and that doesn't make it correct, but it does show that, this is the modeled structure that has been in House Targaryen of, we need to rule through fire and blood, through fear. And it again ties into that idea of, if he is trying to model himself after Maegor, it makes sense that he's going about it in this way that is, wrong and misguided. It reminds me a bit of the way Joffrey rules, and he's trying to, invoke Robert and what he thinks Robert would do, but it's not correct. It's just a little too unhinged. And so it really gives us a picture of how House Targaryen has been run. And also, with this difference, it kind of gives those echoes of, Bloodraven and Baelor disagreeing on what to do about, the Blackfyre situation of no,
Sure.
We need to stamp it out versus we should be a little more lenient.
Yeah, and Tim, we only have to consider the example of King Aerys, whose misrule and cruelty directly fed into the rebellion against him. It led to Robert's rebellion directly, and that's what Baelor is trying to avoid. He sees Aerion steering the house in that direction, and he's like, no, we can't do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, because, like you said, every now and then the ruling class needs to be reminded that if you cut them, they will bleed, even if they are lizard people. And again, any connections to real life are purely coincidental. But we've seen, since the dance, the Targaryens have been ruling with different kinds of experiments without dragons and trying to find what works. Aegon III rules through bread and circuses. Daeron the Young Dragon tries to start a new war of glorious conquest. Baelor the Blessed will use faith and religion to try and keep things down. And then, until we get to the absolute misreel of Aegon the Unworthy. And now here we are, this is the peak. It's Daeron the Good who had the tumultuous task of trying to rein in his father's corruption and still keep things going. And he's found that it's through consensus and compromise and bringing Dorne in peacefully and actually, doing the royal progressions, meeting with the lords both high and low, and letting the small folk see you. That seems to have been the best way of going about this. But he has 4 sons, all with 4 different views of how to continue on with that. And we see like sometimes it takes one good leader can fix everything, but then as soon as that leader is gone, everything falls apart. And that's where that's kind of where the trajectory is going for House Targaryen. Like this really is the beginning of the end.
Yeah. And again, the Blackfire Rebellion was just 15 years ago. It was a war that chewed up hundreds or even thousands of lives of the commoners fighting on behalf of the Targaryen family squabble. So it's like, yeah, as Stefan Fossaway said to Dunk, where are the dragons? Do you see any dragons? And it's the same thing that they did when they crowned Robb King of the North. They're like, we knelt to the dragons. Does anyone see any dragons? So Aerion is completely oblivious to that fact. And again, in the end, Maekar is siding with Aerion and saying, well, we've got to put down this display of this rebellious puppet show, and this guy standing up. So wasn't Robert's Rebellion going to happen no matter what? Actually, I think Aerys was just overreacting to a true treason. Rickard was actually working with the rebellious clique. Well, so I would have to go back and look at the Northern Conspiracy theory and when it started. But I think Aerys is already doing misrule by the time that starts to come together. And just creating the marriage alliances isn't the whole rebellion. That's basically giving yourself a better position with which to potentially resist the king if you need to. But they didn't actually, marriage alliances aren't going to war. Like they went to war when Aerys started, killing people. It was Ned and, or not Ned, Brandon and Rickard, and then they demanded the head of Ned and Robert. So there's definitely multiple factors in any war, and we could do a whole stream about Robert's Rebellion. We might do that one time. But it's obvious that Aerys' misrule, which went on for years and years and years, was a key factor in motivating people to get off their ass and actually start a war about it. Yes, absolutely. It was the main factor.
Yeah, because I think what the big factor that led to Robert's Rebellion is Lyanna Stark running off with Rhaegar and the lie that was told about Rhaegar kidnapping her. Because up until that point, the tourney at White Walls essentially was a plan for a bloodless coup. It was to show the High Lords that Rhaegar is the better alternative. The plan would have been get Aerys to try and get him to abdicate, have Rhaegar take control, and the High Lords would have said, because Tywin Lannister is essentially playing both sides of the aisle. He wants to betroth Cersei to Rhaegar, but he's still interested in the Southern ambitions. That's why Jaime goes to Riverrun as a possible match for Lysa Tully. Her marrying Jon Arryn as a result of the war breaking out. Now, if Rhaegar had kept his eyes on the prize and didn't let prophecy get in the way of taking the throne, and didn't give Lyanna Stark the Blue Rose crown, if he didn't knight her the queen or make her the Queen of Love and Beauty, if he just did what he was supposed to and just made his wife the Queen of Love and Beauty and stuck to the politics, most likely he would have prevailed. But no, he let prophecy get in the way of what was the more important thing at that moment, and that's because to him the prophecy was more important than but it's like, no, man, securing the throne first was more important.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of the idea that Peter Baelish is the one that told Brandon or spread the word to Brandon indirectly that Lyanna had been kidnapped when that's not actually what happened. Absolutely, absolutely. But the centerpiece of this is Aerys' misrule. If Aerys isn't a crazy tyrant, then people aren't just going to be motivated to go to war just to take him off the throne. It's just, they just won't. And so, yeah. People have also talked about going back to the Fossaway treason. The Targaryens, blah, 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 blah. The bit about, well, they don't respect our customs. Some people have pointed out, well, Aegon actually took up the faith of the Seven, and they did in many ways respect Westerosi customs, but he might be thinking of Maegor the Cruel and his war against the faith, too. So at different times, it's been both ways. And obviously not all the Targaryens are tyrants. Some of them are decent kings. But the whole role of king is tyrant, basically. Like, just as a political system, we moved away from monarchy because it was totalitarian. One guy can just do whatever. So, yeah. Interesting. I always love it when go ahead, Estella.
Oh, I was just going to add on to that and say, I agree. And I think with the Iron Throne and this position, George is exploring a lot of the times how it is an inherently narcissistic role that someone has to then be molded into. And it either like, breaks a person down, which I feel like we kind of see with like Viserys and House of the Dragon, of like all of this responsibility, all of this, like you have to be the strongest, toughest person, you have to put on this tough display, when really he just wants to play with his figurines. It just shows that how over time it just chips you away until you are just like, melting, you're decaying, or the other rulers oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes rise to it and are like, yes, I am the most important person in the world and I'm the greatest person because everyone tells me so and the realm tells me so and I'm from the special dragon family. And so with that, yeah, we are seeing like an inherently kind of narcissistic and tyrannical view of, the throne. So just wanted to add that.
Well, and that's something George is doing with the prophecy. Go ahead, Tim. I was just saying the prophecy kind of makes it kind of true. And George is asking the question, like, how egotistical would that make you to think, and especially if it was maybe true.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to point out, because Raven, like, Arian, I thought I went out and I was like, if this cat knocks something out again. But
No, this seems to be mine. Can you type into the chat? Try typing something into the chat. Okay, there we go. I see mine coming in. Oh, God. We could see you and Tim, but not Estella. Okay, so we are live. There's Estella. I'm sorry, guys. Mic is quiet. Oh, because it doesn't... Why did it disconnect? I think we're back. Yes. I don't know what happened, guys. Thanks everyone who's watching. We were up to 700. We're down to 550 now. We trimmed some people, but thank you all for coming out on Saturday and dealing with this. I'm not sure why this happened or what was going on. Let's just hope that it is back.
It's because I was about to insult the Targaryens.
I was just gonna say it's because we were trashing the Targs and we were trashing prophecy and following it, and so.
But
I didn't even say Jeffrey Epstein or anything like that. I didn't say any of the magic words. I don't know what happened. All right, so it might be a little bit laggy. You guys keep me updated. Let me know if it is coming through clean or not. But we're gonna go ahead with the stream here. Where were we? I completely forgot what we were talking about.
So we were talking about Arian's reaction to the play and their.
Oh, you were just saying that Arian is basically proving the treasonous talk of the Fossaways true.
Yeah,
and then it cut out. Bloodraven was like, chop.
Yeah, because as Raymond Fossaway said, like, they're foreign aliens, they don't respect our culture. So when Arian try and plays up like the dragon dying, this is a veiled threat for House Targaryen, but if you were in Raymond Fossaway's shoes as a native Westerosi, you'd be looking at it and going, no, this is a faithful adaptation of Serwyn of the Mearshield. Like, what the hell are you talking about? But so like Arian's like that toxic part of the fandom who wants the story to conform to their worldview and won't accept it when it goes against his preconceived notions. And so that's why he's able to have like such a reaction to it, that he can make it out like, oh, this is an insult to House Targaryen. But then also it's like, well, this is also just an excuse for you to be a complete and utter POS.
What were you saying about John the Fiddler there? With the super chat, give me more. What are you talking about? What foreshadows how John's plans come to pass? I'm always down to talk about John the Fiddler, so just expand on that one if you could and tag me in it. So this is I talked about this, Tim, in my video this week that I put out like the day before yesterday. Are they blood magic tyrants? And I explored the idea of the dragon on the hill, sort of hoarding gold from everyone, and the king living in a castle on the hill. Do you know that the word Lord derives from two terms that basically mean keeper of the wheat? So like the whole like, it's just what I was saying. The point of a castle is to monopolize resources and extract them from the populace. They're an entirely predatory undertaking. And so, yeah, Tim, I was making that similar point. Like, if Aeron is so worried about the Targaryen perception in the kingdom, the dumbest thing he could do would be to strap that boot up and wear it. And basically that's what he does. He's like, oh yeah, no, the Targaryens, we are the dragons that you need to slay. We are the abusive tyrants. And so, yeah, it doesn't understand the optics very well. And that's exactly what Baelor is trying to do the opposite of. Now, go ahead, Estella.
Oh, sorry, no, keep going, and I can wait.
I was gonna move on to the next point, so go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to ask both of you, when they're talking about the trial by 7, and Maekar says, "Oh, well, if the Andals did it, or if it's the Andals or whatever," did you interpret that as him being a little snide and being like eye-rolly at the Andals, or did you interpret it as... Yeah, and so I feel like it goes in with that point of like, they don't respect our customs, and then, Maekar's just like, oh, the Andals,
Again, it's that they're trying to maintain this degree of separation. I get the same vibes too when in House of the Dragon, when Viserys was talking to the dragon handlers in High Valyrian, and when Aemond does the same, and it's like, oh, you're speaking in your secret language that nobody else in the room can understand. Well, it's like, yeah, it feels like when you do something like that, it's like, it feels like you're keeping things from us because you're trying to make yourself exempt from the rest of us. And then that goes all the way back to Jaehaerys the Conciliator and this doctrine of exceptionalism. And this is why we're allowed to marry our sisters. It's like, like, you can't, that's having your cake and eating it too. You want to rule over Westeros, and you pay lip service to certain foundations of Westerosi culture, like the faith, but you're not truly integrating. You're still trying to maintain some kind of level of separation and some kind of level of superiority going back to old Valyrian customs.
Yeah, that's how I read it all too. And I did think it was funny how everyone's like, yeah, the Targaryens are caught up in their own nostalgia. The Fossaways are like, we Fossaways. It's like, nobody cares about the Fossaways. But yeah, sure, you've been here a long time. Okay. And someone in the chat is noticing potentially a little Garden of Eden stuff because the snake Aryan used the apple to mislead Dunk. Something like that. The thing I was thinking of, Tim, is, the Summerhall prophecy stuff. Did dragons really hatch at Summerhall? And Dunk is essentially, if you think about the puppet show conflict, Egg is the one who sees the dragon harming the woman, and he runs and gets Dunk, and he's like, come kill the dragon. And he even says, I wish Dunk would have killed him. And so it's like, well, did Dunk have to kill was it a Lane of Velaryon situation where like Egg hatched a dragon, then it attacked him, and Dunk had to, had to save him from it? I don't think so, but I was just thinking about like parallels and stuff like that.
No. I think it'd be great if eggs did hatch, but what came out were essentially face huggers and not actual dragons.
Abominations.
Yeah, we had kind of talked about that of like it'll turn into like The Mist, where it's just all the smoke and every creatures just popping out of nowhere.
Well, it'd be like in Aliens, the second movie, when the crew walk into the nest, and the face huggers.
Yeah, the hatchery and face huggers. Yeah.
It's basically every Aliens movie, but yeah, you get the point. So yeah, I will talk about that stuff in the Crone video that's going to come out as soon as the stream is over. So check that one out. Okay, so going back to the beginning of the episode, Tim, shall we talk about the oily black stone that Dunk's cell is clearly made out of? I mean, when they began the episode, we're looking at the ceiling and it's kind of black and greasy looking. I mean, so clearly this is a Lovecraftian castle here at Ashford. No, this is not the case. No. So I did. People asked me about it.
Let me go get the tinfoil hat.
I would love if oily black stone appeared somewhere in one of these shows.
somewhere. I was gonna say, I mean, if we do get that animated Corlys Velaryon show, if he is gonna go to the Thousand Islands, I mean, maybe we'll see something, you know.
Yeah, last I checked, the animated ET show Golden Empire is still in production. It hasn't been completely axed yet, so maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, if you remember, the TV show sidestepped the oily black stone Kraken throne. We got a Kraken-shaped fireplace mantle, and Balin just sort of pacing around the room. So. And I will remind people that think the oily black stone is some obscure thing that's only in the world of Ice and Fire and not important to the story, that it's actually in A Clash of Kings. The Greyjoys sit on a giant hunk of oily black Lovecraftian meteorite stone, and that's in the book, so deal with it. Anyway, let's get back on track here. So the beginning of the episode, we get, just to sort of go through the scenes, we get Dunk sitting in the cell, and Egg comes and talks to him. We've talked about that. You know, what's interesting is how angry Dunk is. You know, he's like, you lied. You got me in all this trouble. And it's interesting. You know, I was thinking about Egg saying, oh, I wish Duncan would have killed him. Like, is there a reason that Egg ran to Dunk, right, instead of somebody else? Was he hoping that his big hedge knight friend was going to break Aerion's face? Like, on a kid, thinking as a 9-year-old, he's like, I've got this abusive brother, and now I've got a new brother who's big and strong. You know, like, it was potentially kind of a selfish thing, taking advantage of Dunk a little bit, yeah, to get Dunk to beat up his older brother, not really thinking about the consequences that would bring on Dunk. Because Egg passes it off as, oh, I didn't have enough time to go to Baelor. But, yeah, just what do you think of that angle?
I agree, and I think that makes sense. I mean, children oftentimes don't have the foresight to see through situations. So sure. I could definitely see that happening. I could see, or it's like kids oftentimes, you know, have a set endpoint in their mind, and then when a situation doesn't play out that way, they're like shocked. And it's like, because they thought so much, oh, this is going to happen. They don't really fully understand the consequences. And in a way, too, Dunk is kind of like a big kid. I saw it as very ironic that he was so angry at Egg for lying, when it's like, are you really a little bit angry at yourself? Because also, you have kind of built everything on a lie as well, and you also have gotten yourself into this situation. It feels not fully like projection, but a little bit like brotherly fighting in that way.
Yeah, so I'm not meaning to say like, oh, to impugn Egg's character, but I mean, there was that layer to it, I think. And even with Baelor, it's like, couldn't Baelor have just decided to punish Aerion and taken control of the situation? And instead, he's sort of like leading Dunk into this trial by combat, wondering maybe Dunk can beat the crap out of Aerion and I won't have to, you know, be seen to be coming down on another member of the royal family. So you could even wonder if Baelor is taking advantage of Dunk a little bit to deal with Aerion when he didn't want to confront him directly.
Ooh.
What do you think of that, Tim? Not to impugn Baelor's motivations, but I'm just saying it's a layer that's there.
Oh, that just reminded me of a line out of Lord of War, which is like, but the enemies of your enemies are also our enemies, and sometimes they need a middleman who needs to move the product that the president can't be seen moving himself. Sometimes he needs a freelancer to do it for him. And that's like, oh man, that's kind of, if Baelor is using Dunk in that way of, I want to punish my nephew, but I can't be seen doing that myself because that could cause a schism in the family. And we've already, again, Blackfire Rebellion, 15 years in the past, we saw what happened the last time there was a schism in the family. And before that, when there was a schism in the family, that led to nuclear war with dragons. So it's like, maybe I can use this to my advantage. He gets punished, but if I'm not the one directly doing it, then it doesn't reflect back on me.
It looks more like Aerion just making a mess and then getting caught up in it himself. Exactly right. So yeah, I'm glad you guys approve of that. I was like, man, am I thinking too hard about this? But no, I mean, it's right there. He definitely kind of suggests it to Dunk and leads him into, going for the trial by combat. And then Aerion blows it up and it's like, oh, well, trial by 7. And now everyone's involved. And so now Baylor is kind of like, oh shit, well, now I've got to put my money where my mouth is now, kind of. And so he steps into it. So yeah, it is kind of complicated.
Yeah. I mean, to cover the other side of that, though, what Baylor is to do the less slimy aspect of it, though, what Baylor is doing is he also has to play that role of justice, which is even the absolute guilty still require a trial. We still have to go through this whole process of like, even if we know for a fact you did it, but we still have to do the trial to show that the rules apply to everyone. So he's walking that fine line. Now, to be fair to Egg, like when Baylor says like, well, you should have came to me, and Egg says there wasn't enough time. To be fair to Egg, that is true. Dunk was just right across the way in Raymond Fossaway's pavilion, whereas Baylor was all the way back at Ashford Castle. And even if Egg did run to him, what are the chances, right, that Crown Prince handed the king Baylor Breakspear is going to be sitting in his room alone, not attending to some other duty, not focused on something else? Like, are you sure like Egg is going to be able to get his full attention before any more damage is done? It really seems like to Egg, the quickest, most direct path was going to Dunk. Dunk's right there. Dunk's the closest. And of course, Dunk is the brother I always wanted. So he's going to he's probably going to do what I think what I want.
Yeah, it's definitely ambiguous. I just was, thinking about that angle there, so.
Yeah. It's like, think about like as a little kid ever trying to get your parents' attention when they were like on the phone or something. It's impossible.
Yeah. And like Estella was saying, 9-year-olds don't really think about, what's going to happen if I do this, and then what's going to happen after that. Egg's face lit right up when Baylor made his stance clear. The child actor is incredible. Yeah, Dexter's amazing. Also, Dave, really liked your last few vids for this series. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that.
When Egg and Dunk were talking and, Dexter was tearing up, I was just like, okay, yeah, but don't be so mean to him. Like, he's just a little boy. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, I get it, he lied, but also he's tiny and he just wanted to be a squire. Like, that actor did so well in that scene. He has just been fantastic.
I thought we got a little glimpse of how Sir Arlen raised Dunk when Dunk told Egg, he's like, dry your tears. He's like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't sit here and cry. Like, deal with what's happening. That's very flea bottom ethos there. So. Yeah.
And it was also very apt, and he was like, oh, we don't want the little prince to be disappointed, do we? It's again just like pointing out of like, look at what has happened,
The class struggle. Go ahead, Tim. Yeah.
But that's why it's so great for Egg, and it's so reassuring to us that when he does go to audience with Baylor, and Baylor tells him like, pour him a cup, try not to spill it, and then Dunk says like, he won't spill it, he's a good boy. Like, you see that like that look on Egg's face of like, oh, he's mad, but I haven't completely lost him. Like, we can salvage this.
Yeah, it was a good character moment for Dunk too. Again, Dunk, in the moment, he's going to be the stern disciplinarian, and then later he's going to speak up for him. Just like you fight with your brother or whatever in private, but then you stick up for him in public, kind of like that. And also kind of like every time Dunk comes down on Egg, he immediately softens it, like with the sandwiches, He's like, you can eat salt beef after you do your chores. Okay, well, I'll go buy some eggs and,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just kind of Dunk trying to learn how to parent, essentially. He's trying to put in play what Sir Arlen did for him. And he definitely, you can tell that he sees it as him doing a turn for Egg, such as was done to him, only to find out that Egg's a prince just playing a game. So yeah, it's natural that Dunk would feel a fool, probably a little mad at himself for not figuring it out. Also, he's, like you said, Estella, he's also lying about his legitimacy. And that's why he says, when I think it's Raymond who's like, oh, they're just talking about the consequences. And Dunk says something about, this is the gods punishing me for not knowing my place. That was his way of confessing, essentially. I came here, I wasn't really a knight, and I'm trying to call myself a knight, and here's what I got. So yeah, that all fits pretty well.
Yeah. So Winter's Lady is saying, like in the book, Dunk said, I remember wanting something so much I'd tell a monstrous lie just to get it. That is Dunk's internal monologue, but which of course we don't get in here. We're not hearing Dunk's inner thoughts, and he's not going to say that out loud because then that's just going to make him look guilty.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, have the unsullied general public picked up on Dunk not being knighted yet? Well, they certainly referred to it in multiple episodes in various ways, but yeah, it's never really confirmed in the books. It's just spelled out. It's one of those things where if you understand how books work, you understand that this is what's happening. And if you think that books should be like a forensic court case, then you might be stuck on that still. So, but yeah, he's not
I was going to say, do you think Lionel clocked that a little bit in that scene where he's like, any knight can make a knight? Because he kind of gave Dunk like a look a little bit where I was like, it was an odd look where I was like, what are you thinking here? In a way that I hadn't really noticed in the novella.
I looked at it more as Lionel was thinking this might be the first time Dunk has ever knighted anybody, because obviously look at him. And so he was kind of like, go on, you can do it. You know, any knight can make a knight. You have this power, go for it. Like, he just thought it was cute. So that's how I read it, but perhaps it's meant to be suspicious. The thing that's interesting to me is like, just thinking about Dunk's life, and I guess we won't spoil the rest of his life, but he goes on to live a great life, and you know, he's going to be rubbing elbows with people who are mostly highborn, and yet he's always this person that came from Flea Bottom, and like that sense will never leave somebody. Like, he can spend as many years as he wants to in court, wearing silks and living in the castle and doing whatever else. He will never not be the kid from Flea Bottom. So that's just an interesting dynamic. Like, him and Egg are best buds and all that, but Egg will always be a prince, and Dunk will always be a kid from Flea Bottom, you know, no matter how much Dunk sleeps in a castle or Egg sleeps under a hedge. So that is something that George seems to understand, and you see that pop up in these various moments. Yeah, and I don't know if Dunk knew the words either. Yeah, it didn't look like...
That's also too. I was like, maybe he doesn't even know what to say. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, but to Raymond Fossaway's credit, though, when he gets to tell people I was knighted by, in this, like later on down the line after Dunk makes a name for himself, he had to say I was knighted by Sir Duncan the Tall, is going to be a big thing. But right now in the moment, nobody knows who Dunk is, so he at least gets the braggy rights of saying I was knighted by Lionel Baratheon the Laughing Storm, which is still a very high honor.
Yeah, and Stephanie, yes, that's at the risk of skipping the obvious, or stating the obvious rather, yes. The point is that whether or not he's knighted, he's the one practicing the true values of knighthood, and that's more important, obviously. And it's the same with Brienne, who is living as a knight, even though she is not knighted. She is out there doing the actual honorable stuff. So yes, that is a theme that's running through characters like Jaime and Barristan and Sandor. What does it mean to be a knight? Who's a true knight? What do these vows mean? They make you swear and swear. You know, it's so complicated. Yeah.
I was going to say, too, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly in the novella, he kind of has an internal struggle of, like, am I just making fake knights if I do this? And obviously we don't directly verbally get that because we don't have this internal monologue in Dunk's head all the time. But I think the actor did a really good job at portraying that hesitancy in a way that we didn't need to verbally hear that to understand his dilemma.
Yeah. And we've seen what happens when you get like fake knights. If you go back to the Dance of the Dragons, the Gutter Knights. Now, yeah, Sir Perkin the Flea was technically a real knight, but the knighthoods that he was doling out willy-nilly were not earned.
Yeah, it's a whole Ponzi scheme that comes crashing down. But yeah, so several people in the chat are mentioning how emotionally impactful it was to see Raymond knighted. It really was, for multiple reasons. One, we're thinking about Dunk being a knight, and are there no true knights among you? And then we see this reminder of what the vows are and what they mean. And the way they did it, you could see Lionel with the sword, and you see Raymond's point of view, and like, I was not expecting that. I've never really gotten emotional about the knightly vows But like that scene was powerful, and the way it was superimposed, and then a shot of Sir Arlen shrugging, and like all of it running together, the absurdity and the seriousness of it. That's why I say 10 out of 10. Like that was really an incredibly shot sequence. The editing was great on it, and Lionel's voiceover. So it really all came together here, and you start to see why they've, portrayed the crone and the warrior and stuff in these different forms. They really want us to think about these characters of the Seven and the culture of it and what it means. A lot of it might be silly, but the core of it is protecting the weak. Like if you're given a sword and you're big and strong, like it's up to you not to be abusive, but rather be a protector of the innocent. And that's kind of what it's all about. So good stuff. Yeah. What do you guys think about the knighting scene? Did it move you?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very moving. I thought it was very well done. And yeah, it gave me like a feeling of like pride and nostalgia. I feel like that moment, as well as the moment when Baelor shows up and the music swells, but it's kind of this interpolation of the theme that also has in that guitar, that Knight of the Seven Kingdoms guitar. I was like, oh, this is, it really is like, this is what the story is. This is what it's about. And, I thought it was very well done.
Yeah, I dug hearing the GOT theme as Baelor wrote out, dun dun, because they've held off on it. Like they haven't been doing it at the beginning. And so it actually meant something again when they brought it back there. It was like, oh yeah, the theme. It is a good theme, isn't it? It's.
Yeah, that is
And
like.
then,
Oh, sorry. I was just
sorry,
going
go
to say
ahead.
that's a good example of using things sparingly. Is when we finally got the one and only time we hear the original theme is in this moment.
Yeah, I thought that was dope. And super
Yeah.
chat. Yeah, I did make a joke about the ceiling looking like oily stone at the beginning. I think it was just meant to contrast the idea of like there's the sky outside and the Dunk's inside. Like he can't see anything, he can't see the stars. Because remember, they made a big bit. Oh, his pavilion was cool because he can see the stars, and he was lucky because he saw the comet. And so now he's shut off from everything. And in the books, he's like listening to the jousting and like, oh man, I can't even see it. So yeah.
And we didn't even really go into did we talk about the shield and his kind of
No,
moment of
we
despair
haven't touched
of like,
the steely pate or the shield. So go for it.
because I was going to say it kind of goes into as well. Yeah, he's not outside under the stars. He can't see. He doesn't have his luck in a way. It's funny. It reminds me a little bit of the way Davos is constantly like, I've lost my luck. I don't have my finger bones anymore. In that sense of, Dunk gets his shield and he's like, this is a bad omen. I have no luck. This is terrible. And I thought it was very kind of Steely Pate to, kind of bring him out of that and be like, no, man, these are summer leaves. This is, don't despair. I thought it was very nice.
Yeah, Steely Pate does symbolism. Get off my corner, Steely Pate. No, I loved that. He was breaking down the analysis, the symbolism of it. Yeah, summer leaves for sure. And of course, if you want to think about the themes of the story, it's pretty consistent. Ice and fire, day and night, the stars falling. It is sunset, but the tree is alive and it's full of summer life. So yeah, thought that was pretty cool.
And then only charging a copper for the work done on it, reinforced steel, and it goes to show like Steely Pate again, as you said, the true working class hero, and recognizing that in Dunk, and that's why he extends that like for you a copper.
Yeah, definitely a mic drop line. I love that they cut away from the scene right there. He's for you, thoughtful beard stroke. He's like, I'm enjoying the moment, a copper. Yeah, so pretty great, right out of the books. Steely Pate was awesome. It's one of those characters where he's not on the screen much, but he just nailed it every time. I'm pretty sure he only eats meat, like I said. No vegetables, no fruit. But yeah, great pep talk. Him giving Dunk the shield oath made you, we should probably also think of Brienne's knighting. The only good thing that really happened in season 8, the scene with Brienne getting knighted by Tormund and the whole, not Tormund. I guess Tormund is the one who calls for it, and who does it?
Jamie, I believe. Right?
Okay, right. Yeah, it's been a while. I don't rewatch Game of Thrones, but yeah, similar vibes.
Right?
Similar vibes there. Yeah. with Steely Pate giving because it's not the nightly oath, but it's same vein. It's a mantra that Dunk clings to. Oak and iron guard me well, or else I'm dead and doomed to hell. I said it wrong in my video. I said damned and doomed to hell or something like that. It's dead and doomed to hell. So
I feel like we've already touched on this in the past couple of lives, but the way they've integrated songs and rhymes into this, it could have been very kind of hokey and cheesy, but the way they've done it has worked so well that it makes me a little sad we don't get more of it. Like, I mean, I know in Thrones we got like, Jenny of Old Stones we kind of got Hands of Gold, but it was in a weird scene that it shouldn't have been in. In my opinion, it didn't make any sense. But it makes me a little bit longing for what could have been, because this is done so well.
I'll never forget. I happened to go to a con during week 3 of season 8, the weekend of the big, the short night. But the episode before had been Brienne's knighting and Jenny's song and stuff. So at that con, everybody was singing that song. Like, there was literally an acoustic guitar sing-along going on in the lobby of like 14 people singing Jenny's song. And I might have rolled my eyes a little bit, but it was an incredible song. And yes, I did roll my eyes. But I agree. The music has been incredible on this show. Both the little folk rhymes that Egg is, singing about the black fires and stuff. So yeah, hopefully more of that in the future. I'm sorry. I have trouble with sappy stuff. Jamie knighting anyone is the single most annoying thing anyone could think of. Jamie hates establishment titles. Yeah, but the thing is, I thought that made it ironic and moving, because Jamie's never taken, he has this sort of jaded view on the vows, but it means so much to Brienne. And in that moment, that's what it was about. So yeah, I still thought that was powerful. But so I don't know if they're going to use this moment. B Stall in the chat is bringing up the line where Dunk is realizing that people are cheering for him, and he asks Pate, "What am I to them?" And he says, "A knight who remembered his vows." I think they've hit that theme pretty hard, But maybe we'll get that line at the beginning of next week. So hard to say.
Well, and I was thinking too, because in the graphic novels, don't we see there's like a woman that kind of kisses him on the cheek or something? I'm wondering if they're going to give that to Red.
Tim, do you remember?
Yeah, there is. So, and I remember someone on Twitter said like maybe they'll give her that line, and everyone's like, "Well, what line are you talking about?" And it's all joke responses, but it's like maybe that scene could go to her. That could be when Steely Pate gives that answer. But the point is, just like we've seen over and over, like knights not following up to the standard. Like even Stefan, even before he does his big jerk moment, he says like all knights take the same vows. I assume it's same for hedge knights, and then he immediately tosses out those vows. Aerion Brightflame, he is Sir Aerion. He is a prince, but he also has been knighted. Presumably, even as a prince, he still would have taken the same vows, but he said it completely. Obviously, when he took those vows, he was lying through his teeth. But so that's why it's so important when you finally see a knight truly encompassing those vows. And that's why it's such a thing, like the fact that Dunk most likely isn't a knight. Again, it's someone who isn't a knight but holds the true knightly vows, the true honor. And then we see that reflected with characters like the Hound, Sandok the Shadow. It's a repeating theme throughout all corners of the story. George constantly brings this up. People who are not knights but still encompass the virtues, while the people who have the title are completely going against it.
So somebody in the chat is pointing out, getting back to the music, that like the theme that they do with the little whistling sounds a bit like a Western. It's got that American folk kind of feel. Definitely does. It's really fits to me. Like if you had asked me, what do you think about a Dunk and Egg theme song that's like acoustic guitar strumming and like whistling? I'd be like, what else do we have? Is there anyone else we could talk to up there? But I think it really fits very well. So yeah, we're getting a few different emotions with the music range. Go ahead, Tim.
I love bardcore, and anyone who's watched the videos on my channel would know that with the background music, because I'm always looking up acoustic versions or like medieval covers of like actual songs. That's why I got like acoustic versions of Transylvanian Hunger, and why my personal theme song is a acoustic version of Go Into the Water. So yeah, I would love a hardcore version of the theme song being played on a lute and a hurdy-gurdy.
Well, we will all wait for that live stream from you, Tim. And somebody in the chat is saying that, there was a bit of, and no, Stephanie, I didn't. Somebody's saying there was an interesting classical guitar version of the theme at the end of the credits. I missed that. I'll have to go back for that. Thanks for
Yeah, I was
mentioning
gonna
it,
say when they played it, it goes into like an almost interpolation of it, where it's kind of with guitars that kind of melt with the instrumentation that we've been getting all season, which was really nice because it's like, oh, this is the epic kind of Thronesian moment or whatever you want to call it, but it is still that more grounded, different story. This is still a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms in a way that I thought was really well handled.
Yeah, and sorry, there was something in the chat having to do with this. Oh, yeah, so somebody was saying they felt like when Baylor came on Dunk's side, it gave the crowd the permission to cheer for Dunk, whereas before it was like deathly quiet. Maybe the people were kind of afraid of cheering for Dunk because of the Targaryens there. And so, yeah, you could see as soon as Baylor joined Dunk's side, the crowd basically erupted. So that gives you a little bit of an inkling about where the crowd is, and we'll have to see. Probably that will continue next episode. So, yeah, I will go back to listen to that. Summer is saying, please tell me we get to see Dunk's crush again. Is she just gone now forever? Well, of course, one of the other Dunk and Egg stories. Tim, take it away.
So the Sworn Sword opens with memories of Dunk going to Dorne. He was looking for Tanzel, but he couldn't find her. I've got to remember, Dorne's a big place. Not just like saying, oh, she returned to Dorne. Well, that's pretty vague. Like where in Dorne is she going? Is she like, does she live in the Shadow City around Sunspear? Is she from the Hellholt? Like who knows where
definitely Hellholt. Tim, did Dunk say he couldn't find her?
I don't think he found her again.
Yeah,
he still
never found her.
He dreams of her. He envisions he has that one moment where he thinks of her and Rohan Weber at the same time.
And I believe George has said, like, he thinks, they might meet up again in the future, kind of hint, hint. It feels like they have to. It feels like that will need to happen at some point.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've got a little more on the Rohan Weber mystery in my Crone video coming after the stream. So in case you missed me saying that earlier, I will have a video going live as soon as the stream is over about the Crone and her prophecies. Let's see here. What do you think? Let's talk about Daeron for a minute. So one comment was just talking about the emotional impact of saying we used to have dragons and now they're gone. Whatever the line was, it was very haunting. And then the other part was like somebody asking me, where do the dragon dreams come from? If dreams come from dragons, there's no more dragons. Well, there are eggs. And we saw that Dany was getting dragon dreams from her egg before it hatched. So that is one answer. And I also think that the dragon spirits are probably somewhere, in Glass Candle Net or in the, when they're like, before they're reborn, they're like waiting to come back. So it feels like those dragon dreams could potentially come from dragons, even when they're not around. They can come from the egg because there's a spirit in the egg, or they can come from wherever the dragon spirits are waiting, with all that Glass Candle stuff that we've gotten from George about the canceled Feast for Crows drafts, that could be the answer as well.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the emotional impact of Daeron the Drunkard. Between the first episode and this one, these are kind of Daeron's big moments. So what do we think of Daeron? Go ahead, Estella, first.
Yeah, it's funny. I liked his portrayal, but it was a bit different than what I had expected from the novella. I already touched on this a couple lives ago. I think it was just because I'm so used to the audiobook narration by, is it Harry Lloyd, the actor who plays Viserys,
Hmm.
that and there were a couple little lines that they tightened up, shortened up for the show. I think he says something about like, I'll just lay in the mud or something. And so I was kind of expecting that. But they did kind of touch on it in the way where he's like, maybe just give me a blow to the helm and then, not too hard though. But I thought the actor did a very good job. I kind of had hoped that we would have seen some inkling of the Dragon Dream, but I'm not upset that we didn't.
Yeah, it might have distracted from the rest of the episode potentially if they had. Now that I think about it, I was thinking maybe they would do that too. And then of course the thing we thought might be Dunk's dream, picking up the head, turned out to be the head of the puppet amidst the carnage of the puppet show. So I thought that was very poignant. I like how that played out. But yeah, Daron's dream, we didn't see it, but we definitely saw the effects of it. I mean, this is like if Rhaegar wasn't so delusional to think that he could both clean up his father's misrule and marry two princesses and fulfill the prophecy and sort of just pull it all off. Like, this is a guy confident in his own abilities. We see with Daron the Drunkard somebody who takes that trauma of dragon dreams and the burden of prophecy, and instead of going, I must do all the things, he's just like, I can't deal with this, and he just drinks to numb the sensitivity. So that's a very realistic reaction to that. And like I said, I see George dealing with this all throughout the Targaryen family trees. Like, how do these different people deal with this burden of prophecy? Because it would be a pretty messed up situation if you put yourself into it. So, yeah,
I
I
have to
liked
cut my
Daron. Definitely looked like he had PTSD. Go ahead, Tim.
I have to cut my answer in half because part of it is going to have to wait until after we go into spoiler territory. But for now, I will say, like, the thing with Dragon Dreams is we know that even when dragons were around, there were still dragon dreams. Obviously, Dany's the Dreamer had her dream about the Doom. House of the Dragon is giving us Aegon's prophecy, his dream about the White Walkers coming and why he must unite the North. And then something that seems like after the dragons die, the dreams remain, and the dreams seem to come back stronger with a vengeance. Like, that is why, because before it was there were dreamers, but it seemed like one every few generations, few and far between. But now here we are, all of Aegon's brother. Aemon says, like, all my brothers dreamed of dragons, and the dreams killed them, every one. So 4 kids in one family all being dreamers, that is a huge step up from what we've seen before. And it seems like this is, without the dragons are still making their presence known of and trying to spell it like we can be born again, we can be brought back. You have to follow the steps. But now everyone is going through those experiments of like, well, how do we bring them back? And we're seeing like the failures until Danny gets the batch right, I guess we could say. So yeah, so and then we see how they deal with it, and it is it's heartbreaking for Daeron the way he says, like, my dreams become true, but I don't like the things that I see in my dreams because I see people that I love dying, like things like that. That's why he drinks to cope, hoping for a dreamless sleep, but all it's bringing him is just a drinking problem.
Yeah, so I think that what we're dealing with. So first of all, I suspect, Tim, that actually almost all the Targaryens are having dragon dreams, and we just aren't told about it. And as we get more information about various characters, we'll find that they are all having dreams to some extent. But even if it's not that, I think what George is showing us is that these magical bloodlines are potential. So, for example, we got 6 Stark skin changers in one generation, 5 born to Ned, 1 born to Lyanna. So that's not, you could just say, oh, well, the Red Comet came back. Well, the biggest thing is they were given direwolves, and the direwolves are implied as magical animals by the Children of the Forest. And so, like when you put dragon eggs in the cradles, the kids invariably bonded to those dragons. Like this is a technique that works. It's activating the latent gift in the blood. So I think it'd probably the same with the dragon dreams, where like any Targaryen can probably potentially dream, but it has to do with need and circumstance and things like that. So I like what you said, Tim, about like once the dragons are gone, they're trying to come back. And so they're almost in the dreams more potentially. Like that would make sense to me because yeah, they want to come back. They want to guide the choices of these Targaryens so that they can be reborn into the world.
Yeah. But
And I was,
like we said, sorry, I was just gonna say, but to make an omelet, you got to crack eggs before Danny gets it right. We see like for every success, you got to remember every success is built on hundreds and hundreds of failures. And unfortunately, what we're going to see in the time leading up to Duncan Egg's lifetime is the failures.
and I was gonna say too, I think it's interesting that it's not mentioned if Daella or Ray are having dragon dreams at all. I think it's interesting that it's only the sons, but that's why I like the idea that one of them ends up marrying into House Toland, because as we know from the kind of Winds of Winter sample-y stuff we've gotten, it seems like Teora Toland is having dragon dreams, and I saw some people say, oh, wouldn't it make more sense that that house would have married into, Daenerys of Dorne and her children? And it's like, maybe for proximity, but thematically, I think it makes more sense to have these dragon dreamers coming from this direct line of these children who all seem to be having dragon dreams. So
that's why we need more Duncan Egg stories so that they can get some characterization. I also think like we all know Bloodraven. We got to remember Bloodraven has two sisters. There's Missy Blackwood had two other kids with Aegon the Fourth. So there's some other Targ Blackwoods running around. And it's like, what's their story? What are they up to? Are they?
Yeah, Tim, how's your script coming? I mean, you're working on the right Sisters of Bloodraven show, like the Bene Gesserit show. I mean, how's it coming?
That's the thing. I have there's absolutely nothing to go on. All we know are their names. I want to know, are they witchy women?
No, we want to know. You've got to write it, Tim. Come on.
I mean, I have another. How would I write this thing? But I don't know if George is going to go that way. Okay. So we've talked about Euron being, Euron is the non-Targaryen dragon rider, but what if there is an injection of Targaryen blood? Now, here's the thing. We don't know. As far as we know, there's never been a Greyjoy Targaryen marriage. But we do know that Dagon Greyjoy eventually stops raiding. This was a huge part of my video of why I think Dagon Greyjoy is going to be a potential plot point. Is Dagon Greyjoy brought down through sheer military might, or is he brought down because of a pact? One idea I thought of is, what if a peaceful resolution to the end of Dagon Greyjoy's raids is with a marriage pact, but with a lesser Targaryen? What if Dagon Greyjoy marries one of Bloodraven's sisters? That would inject Targaryen and Blackwood blood into the Greyjoy line, and you would have tree krakens. You would have crow krakens.
I just think George would have given us that information if that was going to be some kind of explanation.
I felt the same way, but I was like, if George wants to introduce Targaryen blood into the Greyjoy line to give Euron even more dragon connections, I think the perfect way of doing that would be Dagon Greyjoy took to wife one of Bloodraven's sisters.
That would be crazy. That would be crazy. Well, that would make sense out of the potential Bloodraven Euron connection. Again, I would just say that George would have suggested that already if that was going to be a thing. But
again, that's like I said. This is how would I write this story if I was in charge?
Yeah, I think the idea that Euron isn't a lizard-blooded person and is trying to ride the dragon is going to be important, and it's going to be part of it not working for him, but we'll see. That's just speculation. And I think that Teora Toland is dreaming of dragons because they're going to invade Westeros and people are going to die beneath them. And so I think it escapes the confines of a dragon dream at that point and just becomes more like a Ghost of High Heart thing, foreseeing these major events that are coming. I think that could work as an explanation as well. But we will see. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Daenerys is down there. Her descendants are marrying somebody, the first Daenerys. And yeah. Dang, Dave can speculate, but Tim can't. Did I say that Tim couldn't speculate? Am I not allowed to give my opinion on my own channel?
It is the perfect fusion. Sorry. It is the perfect fusion of Lovecraftian elements to go that way, because Dagon Greyjoy, Dagon, named for the giant squisher god Dagon, purely from Lovecraft, marrying a Blackwood Targaryen, the dead tree dragon. That is a squisher marrying a Byakhee and having children. That is Cthulhu. Dragon and Kraken together, plus the dead trees and the ravens. It's the perfect blood mixture. It's like the antithesis of what Blood Raven was going for. If he was trying to stir the pot to get Egg to marry Bethany Blackwood to get to the prince that was promised, but it's like, yeah, but here's your Bad Batch. Here's your Greyjoy mix. You tried to make Weirwood paste, but here's your Shade of the Evening.
My favorite part about that would be the idea that it's one of Bloodraven's sisters coming back and having a role in creating this connection between Euron and Bloodraven. That would be kind of sick.
But I'm sorry, I cut you off, Estella. What were you saying?
Oh, no, you're good. I realized what I wanted to mention, it gets a little spoilery because it's talking about like future marriages and things. So I can wait till we get to the spoilery part.
And it probably is about that time. I think we've hit the whole episode.
Okay. Yeah, because I already name dropped. Cool. I name dropped Bethany Blackwood.
I was gonna say, in regards to future Dunk and Egg novellas, future potential plot lines, we do know in a way that it seems like, Dunk needs to somehow get his his DNA into the Tarth family, into Tarth, and there's also that kind of inkling that Tarth has like recent Targaryen ancestry, and so that goes into the theories that maybe one of Egg's sisters marries into Tarth, and that maybe she was pregnant with Dunk's child, blah blah blah. It goes into what we were talking about with Baelor a little bit earlier, of maybe he's kind of using Dunk in a way to get around things he doesn't want to do, because I think it's really interesting that Aerion ends up marrying a cousin. You'd think with him trying to invoke Targaryenness, he would really want to marry a sister. He would really prefer that. And it makes me wonder if in future plotlines, if we're going to get one of these sisters going to Dunk and being like, I do not want to marry Aerion. I don't want this to happen. I don't want him to come back over to Westeros and for us to get married. I'm going to propose to you something that will be noble and will be good if we get together and do this instead. I wouldn't be surprised.
The thought of Aerion sticking around. Situation. Sorry, Estella. I was just saying the thought of Aerion sticking around for future seasons and to continue to have a plot that interacts with Dunks is very interesting, isn't it?
Well, because we also know there's, what is it, the sellsword of like, and we do know Aerion eventually does come back and marry Daenora at some point, and it's like, I have a feeling that his cousin was probably not his first choice in Targaryen wife.
Sorry, toot my own horn because I covered that exact aspect in the video I put out today, which was Aerion's return to Dunk and Egg stories being in the sellsword because of his second son's membership.
So there you go, folks.
Perfect.
Just a reminder, after the stream is over, you can watch my video and Tim's video. We have more content for you on this wonderful Saturday where we've got over 800 people watching the stream. So y'all must be looking for some content today. Good news. And yeah, is there anything else we haven't covered before we want to do a little spoiler talk for another 20 minutes or so and then get on out of here? I think we got most of the scenes. I did like how Laughing Storm, when the Fossaway did his betrayal, that was when we got this face right here. And the Lionel's just kind of like, really? There was that face, just like, oh man, wow. Look at you, disgracing yourself. Gee whiz.
And the fact that he doesn't even know who he is. He's like, who's Stevrin? Like, who even are you?
Yeah, that's what this face is like. Stevrin who?
So Did we get any lines from Humphrey Beesbury? He seems to be like the one guy that they didn't come out and say was part of Dunk's team.
Not yet. Not yet. He was there, but they didn't give him any lines. We're focused on Lionel and Harding with the broken leg. You know, that's, again, it's worth taking a minute to reflect on that. Like, oh, I can still ride a horse with my broken leg so I can fight. Like, that's a gangster right there. That's the warrior incarnate, madness delivered moment for sure.
Which Riesling would probably is looking at him like, yeah, this guy gets it.
Yeah, and I do like Sir Robin talking about himself exclusively in the third person.
Third person?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's that I can breathe, I can fight.
So, okay, so official spoiler, spoilers all. If you are wanting to avoid spoilers, then go watch Tim's video right now. And we're going to talk for another 20 minutes, and then I'll make my video live so you can watch that about the crone. But yeah, okay. So spoilers all. So what were the things that you were trying to remember from earlier, Tim and Estella? Do either of you remember?
Oh, okay. So first, someone had asked, "Has Dunk knighted anyone?" And the thing is, we don't know that for sure. What we do know is that Egg will be knighted during the third Blackfire Rebellion. Egg and Dunk will fight. It said Maekar is remembered for his leadership. Egg is remembered for his bravery and earning his spurs. So Duncan is remembered for his bravery, and Arian is remembered for certain actions, which I saying probably what we would refer to as war crimes. Anyway, it's during the third Blackfire Rebellion that Egg is knighted. Now, presumably, Egg would want nothing more than Dunk to be the one to knight him. So something I've wondered is this the point where Dunk finally has to come clean? Is it during the third Blackfire Rebellion where Dunk has to say, I can't knight you because I'm not a knight either?
Well, what I was thinking of is the first time Dunk will actually say his vows is when he joins the Kingsguard. Because when you join the Kingsguard, you do the vows over again. We've seen that in the books. You get anointed with oils and you say the vows in the sept or whatever. And so I think that might be like a big relief for Dunk to actually get to say them. Because he can't go to anybody and be like, hey, we got to do this whole thing because I lied. Because then he'd have to confess. So I don't think he's actually a knight until he becomes a member of the Kingsguard, technically.
So then that raises the question, though, then who knights Egg during the rebellion? My guess is if it's not Dunk, then it's probably his father. It's probably Maekar who does it.
I do look forward to the growth of Maekar. I think I will do a Maekar video when the season's over and try to look at what we know about him and draw it out. But I'm going to enjoy seeing the evolution of his character. Because he does, like, after this whole thing, he sends Arian away to Lys as punishment, whereas before he was standing up for him. And then he, agrees to let Egg squire with Dunk out on the road, eating salt beef and sleeping under hedges. And so, yeah, there is a little bit of an evolution of the character. And then obviously he's shaken by Baelor's death because he remembers that every year he marks the death anniversary, So this is something that really shaped him. And we talk about Baelor's example in terms of the effect it had on Egg. But you have to remember, it wasn't just Egg. Maekar would have been greatly impacted and affected by Baelor's actions at Ashford Meadow. And Egg's older brother, Ares, was king too, right? Am I getting that right? Who else is, who's king after?
Yeah, it goes to Ares.
Mm-hmm.
Who is, he's the brother of, he's Maekar's older brother, right?
Yeah, so the four sons of Daeron, the good, are Baelor, then Ares, then Rhaegal, then Maekar. Ares, so when Baelor dies and then Baelor's sons die in the Great Spring Sickness, it then passes to Ares. But Ares has no children. He never consummates his marriage. And Rhaegal and all of his children will die before Ares. So when Ares passes, it goes to Maekar.
So basically my whole point was that Baelor left a mark on 3 different Targaryen kings who would have prominently been remembering his example. So it's definitely a what would Baelor do wristband that gets passed around. Go ahead, Estella.
Because I was going to say, talk about characters who clearly seem to be haunted by either prophecy or the weight of the Targaryen family. I mean, Aerys, he's obsessed with books and looking over prophecies, and so much so that he forgets to change his clothes, forgets to eat. He hires a maester that's versed in sorcery. He has Bloodraven as his hand, his hand, and it's just like, it's very clear that that is another Targaryen in this kind of direct family that is, something is going on there where he is being like haunted, and he's chasing it, trying to figure out how can I bring the dragons back. And I think even Egg says that, oh, Aerys read a prophecy about the dragons coming back, and it's clear he becomes kind of obsessed with it. So it'll be interesting to see if we get that little line in, I think is it the second or the third novella, if we kind of follow through with this theming of like chasing prophecy, and it always kind of ruins things,
Well, there is like Tyrion says about Baelor, like Baelor should have just effed his wife and done his duty, and the realm wouldn't have bled. And we get that with Aerys because Aerys never consummates his marriage, but at the same time, he refuses to set aside his wife. Like some people think, like, well, maybe he just doesn't like his wife, maybe he doesn't like Eleanor Penrose, but he refuses to set her aside. So it's like it's not hatred of her, dislike of her. Now, some people have said maybe Aerys is gay. I don't know. I've actually gotten the vibes that maybe Aerys is ace. He seems like the type of guy who doesn't want to touch or be touched. But another aspect, I think, is maybe Baelor, in these prophecies, Aerys came to realize it's not me. The prince that was promised is not going to be born through me. I have to, and that's why him and Bloodraven we have to set the stage for Maekar, because it's going to be through the line of Egg that the prince was promised, and now we have to move all our chess pieces around to make sure that this happens.
I like how the prophecy makes Aerys, the first Aerys, ace, or not horny, not interested in his wife, let's just say. It makes the second Aerys crazy, and it makes Rhaegar polyamorous. So you just never know. Read a lot of prophecy, weird things could happen. Go ahead, Estella.
Well, I was going to say, because it's not the first time that we've had a possibly asexual character described as being obsessed with books and bookish to a fault. It's like we obviously have Vagon, who is not interested in men or women or anything. He just wants to be around his books. So I do think this is George kind of cleverly trying to hint to us that, like, it's not the issue of the wife. This guy is just not interested. And then I couldn't agree more. I think maybe he discovered at some point, it's not going to be me. Because it says that he dies at, 44 of natural causes. And I'm like, that feels kind of suspiciously young. It makes me wonder, what truly happened there, if he really was like, it's not going to be me and it's not going to be through my line. So.
Is it a Baelor, like Baelor died because he fasting, and it's like he forgot to eat because of his religious practices, and will they come out and say, oh, Aerys forgot to eat because he was so engrossed in a book?
Just really bad ADHD, just forgot to eat, kept reading, and then passed out. Yeah. Bloodraven, by the way, he was born in 275 AC, I believe it was.
What? 175.
175, yes. 175, which means that as of right now, he is a few years younger than Baelor, essentially. He's like 4 years younger than Baelor, 4 or 5. So he's around. He's just not he's in King's Landing. He's not Hand of the King yet or anything. So he's just a noble bastard at Daeron's court, chilling.
I think he's probably Master of Whispers at this point, but yeah, he doesn't get elevated to Hand of the King until Aerys comes to power.
And that's 2 years after the Hedge Knight. So it's coming, pretty soon. So he's putting himself in a position to where he is the obvious choice to be named Hand of the King, you could say. Yeah. So probably establishing his networks and learning how to skin change birds from the Ghost of High Heart under the hill at some point, So other spoilers, I guess. Go ahead, Estella.
Oh, I was just going to say, we had already talked about the kind of spoiler thing I wanted to talk about, just in the fact that Aerion marries Daenora. But I was going to say maybe we should check out those previous super chats that we couldn't really talk about because they were spoilery.
Oh, that's right. Right at the beginning there were. Let's see. What are the chances Maekar didn't strike the fatal blow? Book makes me think the Kingsguard did it. I'm not sure that I don't remember any clues indicating that it wasn't Maekar. I think the story makes more sense if Maekar did it. I think the point of having him not be sure is just because like it was an incidental blow, you know, in a battle like this, things can happen. And it was like Baelor didn't realize the damage that it did right away because the helmet was holding the skull together. He just was feeling like he got a concussion essentially. So do either of you guys see any clues that it wasn't Maekar?
No, I think it was because we get it even more in the Mystery Night when Egg gets into a fight with the other squires because they're making fun of his dad when they're suggesting that Maekar is going to kill Eris and Rhaegal too in order to try and steal the throne. And Aegon's like, quit, is basically can't say it, but he's like, stop making fun of my daddy. But like, he loves his brother well.
So I think that is the point, that like people think of him as a kinslayer when he's really, didn't mean to. So I also think it's kind of the thing where like George is showing you like this isn't playtime. Aerion dragged all these other people into this combat with live steel, so to speak, and some people got hurt because that's what happens. So I think that's an important part of it too. No free passes. And then the other question was, what if weird, but let's see. In the end, Baelor somehow seems necessary in the prophecy sense. His destiny is fulfilled in the idea that Baelor's fate opens the way for Aerys and then eventually Daenerys. And yeah, this is what we talked about in the Summerhall video. This is an important ripple effect, and it's kind of the whole thing because Baelor did the right thing and stuck up for Dunk. Dunk is around with a hand and a foot to save Rhaegar and Rhaella at Summerhall, and that's the whole reason why we have the Prince That Was Promised and all that stuff. So definitely George is intending to show us that like Baelor sort of redeemed the honor of the house in a karmic sense and preserved this bloodline that would have potentially gone extinct if Dunk hadn't been around to guide Egg. And Egg's whole life would have been different, really. Yeah, it's an important butterfly effect, and it comes from somebody doing the right thing in just the same way that Dany and Jon tend to do when the chips are down. So that's all very intentional. And I covered that in the Baelor video and the Summerhall video. And
but it also shows, but prophecy is messy along the way because even though we will eventually get to Daenerys, boy, are there going to be a lot of bumps in the road until we get there.
So there's a question about who could give Stefan Fossaway the lordship. Could Maekar have done this? I'm not clear on what the law is there and how much power Maekar or Aerion have as princes. It could certainly make sense that they have certain abilities like that. Maybe they could do that and it's subject to the review of King Daeron, but they just assume that they'll get that. I'm not sure. It works for the story as a plot, and I do want to point out that Maekar would have had to be aware of this because he would see that Aerion's side is lining up with 6 people, and he'd be like, "Where's the 7th person?" And Aerion's all like, "Well, you just watch. I got a little something." So that just kind of increases Maekar's dishonor potentially at the tourney for him to be aware of this dirty trick.
And I was going to say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it could be that they're thinking about this as like, well, maybe we can save ourselves the trouble of having to fight if we can disqualify Dunk, and that way nobody gets hurt but Dunk and screw him. But it is kind of dishonorable. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's very fitting for Aerion's character to promise something that he himself actually doesn't have the rights to do. It kind of lines up with him taking matters into his own hands and being like, I'm the blood of the dragon, I need to be this front of the house, and him making a promise and then being like, oh yeah, well they'll grant it because it'll be dishonorable if they don't because I promised this. Like, It's a little bit of a bratty move is kind of what it feels like.
I was thinking the same thing, and when it let's assume that they won, and then Stefan comes to Aerion and is like, oh, about that lordship, and then Aerion has his I have altered the terms of the deal, pray I do not alter them again moment. Because it would final review for that would have to go to Daeron, and Daeron he's known as the cleaner upper. He's the guy who got rid of corruptions in the bot offices. So he would look at Aerion and be like, you did what? You promised him what? And you gave it to him for what? No, he's not getting it. No.
Point of comparison, Tim. Aegon the Unworthy promised Quentin Ball a spot in the Kingsguard. then died. And when King Daeron took the throne, he did not honor that promise.
Yeah, well, because he probably viewed that as like, well, yeah, my dad said that, but I don't think you really. That's probably more of a personal opinion of Daeron, probably looking at him and saying, yeah, my dad said it, but I don't think you deserve it.
It just kind of shows that like Daeron did reevaluate the deal. He didn't feel like he had to live up to it just because another corrupt family member promised it. So, yeah, I like your guys' read on this whole situation. Aerion might have been overpromising on something that he couldn't deliver that would fit the character. Yes.
Yeah, and that would sting even more for Quentin Ball to hear that. Like, I divorced my wife and took up the vows of something. Like, he did all of the preparations to assume this role on the Kingsguard. So for the next king to look at him and say, no, you're not getting this, you don't deserve it. It's like, that's gonna hurt even more. It's like, no wonder he then gets driven over to Bittersteel and Daemon Blackfire's side.
Yeah, I would love to know a little more about that. As I've said many times, the Blackfire Rebellion era is potentially the most drama-filled era to adapt to TV, and some of the characters they have are incredible. Obviously, all the bastards and stuff, but yeah. Quentin Ball is crazy too. I'd like to see him.
And that's what I wanted to cover when we circle back to the Dragon Dreamer thing, because the other Dragon Dreamer we have is in the Mystery Knight. It's Daemon Blackfire II, and how he responds to Dragon Dreams, and he fully embraces it. He's fully on board because he views his dream of he's going to be king, and this second Blackfire Rebellion is going to be successful. Even though we as readers can see, like, this doesn't have a chance in hell. You have no High Lords. You don't have the sword. Bittersteel isn't backing you. You are placing everything literally on a hope and a dream.
Yeah. And Egg was doing the same thing at Summerhall, basically, by committing so much to this effort to hatch these eggs. He probably had a dream. I mean, that's what Maester Aemon implies when he says the dreams killed all my brothers. So it's like, how did Egg die at Summerhall trying to make a dream come true? Definitely.
And something I want to point out too is at that point in time, at the second rebellion, the Blackfires had more Targaryen blood than the actual Targaryens. Daemon Blackfire is Targaryen on both sides. His mother is Data the Defiant. His father is Aegon the Unworthy. And then his children are born through Rohan of Tyrosh, and Tyrosh is a Valyrian colony. So, yeah, the Blackfires are actually have more Valyrian blood in them than the actual royal family at that point in time.
Yeah, for the the blood supremacists out there in the world, that would be very important, definitely. Like Sir Eustace Osgrey.
Well, it's because Bloodraven like kind of casually dismisses it, like, oh, we shouldn't be surprised that others on the other side of the family can have these dreams. And it's like, well, no, of course it's not surprising. They're more Targaryen than you are, Brendan. You know, you ain't special.
Bloodraven is the perfect mix of half Blackwood and half Targaryen. That Dany is also in Rhaegar, so I like it. I approve. And again, I'm going to explain that in a video in like a week and some change. So, by the way, I'm going to double check this with Sean, but we have been talking about doing a symbolism of the Hedge Knight stream, so we can go hardcore on that. I think I would like to do that this week, so watch out for that maybe on Wednesday, pending confirmation with Sean, who is not in the chat today, probably coaching some kids playing basketball. But yeah, symbolism of the Hedge Knight stream. Probably coming this week since I'm not doing a midweek video. Yeah. Do we any other spoiler thoughts before we get out of here?
No,
Somebody said that Maekar
it.
always wanted to be the hammer, and he finally got to be, and it was bittersweet. Of course, the hammer and the anvil situation. Maekar was the shield wall. Baelor was the cavalry. So he is the swinging motion, the hammer that hammered the army against the anvil of Maekar's shield wall. So this time, Maekar's, he's the hammer. He hits Baelor upside the head with the mace. So yeah, I guess maybe that is a touch of irony there.
Well, and to go back to what we were saying before about, like, was it really Maekar's swing that did it? I think thematically, yeah, the irony of it, just because with the way Makar is written as a character, that it is just very fitting for him, of like,
Mhm.
he's, the fourth born, he's looked down upon a bit, he's a little bit jaded because of it. Like you said, he wanted to be the hammer. A little bit of jealousy is in there for his brother who gets all the smoke, and all the glory. And so for that to then occur and people to forever kind of haunt him with these whispers of him being a kinslayer, it just feels very fitting for his character, unfortunately, a bit tragic.
Yes. And so here's a thought I had. Makar is very Stannis coded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've
Yeah.
talked about this before. And we talked about these two philosophies of like demanding everyone obey you because you have power or earning people's respect through just leadership. Stannis actually runs that gamut. He starts off demanding everyone pay him homage and refusing to beg for it, and it's mine by rights. And then he has the change of heart and goes north. And, oh, I've got to defend the realm to be king. I have to do the job first before people acknowledge me, kind of. So it's interesting that this whole Baelor Makar leadership dynamic ends up being sort of a plot arc for Stannis, moving from one position at least closer to the other position. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, Makar's. I pointed that out too in the video again. Very Stannis coded. He's like the version of like what if Stannis, because Stannis never got to have a son. Most of the children, all he has is a daughter. So this is kind of like what would Stannis be if he did have a kid, and it's like what, and if that kid didn't live. I mean, if he had a son and that son didn't live up to the expectations, it's like, well, this is, he would probably be the type of father that Makar is. Um, and everyone say like Makar is jealous of Baelor's giant host of Dornish spearmen. But when you look at it though, Makar is actually the most virile of his brothers. He has 6 kids. Baelor has 2, Aerys has 0, Rhaegal has 3. All by himself, he outnumbers them. So he really was pumping out a lot of princelings and princesses.
Well, I think you got to give some credit to Diana Dane reinfusing the Targ bloodline with that great Empire of the Dawn mojo. Oh, yes, which I will also cover in my Why is Dany Half Blackwood video. The fact that she's a quarter Dane. I will tackle that too. But really, yeah, everyone's so fascinated with Jon Snow's magical bloodlines. Stark and Targaryen, Skin Changer, Blood of the Dragon, maybe Blood of the Other. And here's Dany sitting here, half Blackwood as Bloodraven, and no one says a thing about it. So, yeah, it's time. We're going to set the record straight.
Jon just gets that extra. Well, Jon has that same Blackwood and Dane blood. He just got that extra infusion of Stark by being one generation later than Dany. Yeah,
and it really also kind of makes the whole Rhaegar Lyanna thing make more sense. Like, you could see Rhaegar may have realized that like the Blackwood blood was important because he's talking to Bloodraven and stuff about everything. And yeah. Anyway, I think that'll do it for today's stream. So again, thank you to my co-hosts, Greyways Tim and Estella Graves. Check out their YouTube channels in the description below. And just for the fun of it, I am going to publish my video right now while we're on the air. And then I will sign off and give you the link. And so this will be called The Crone Explained. And we are going to publish it. Visibility, public. So many windows. Move. There we go. Done. Save. And there we go. It is live. Go watch it. Thank you, friends. Thank you for coming. I know I'm asking a lot, but leave a comment too if you want, if you like the stream and you have thoughts on any of the stuff that we were talking about just now. And
subscribe to our channels.
Yeah, I said that already, Tim.
Yeah. Oh,
but do it again.
Yeah. Yes, and go check out my channel, Greyways Tim. Just put out a new video today. Went live about 3 hours ago. The future of Dunk and Egg. And I'll also let you know that the Targaryens aren't truly mad. It's just they's medulla oblongata.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you have to say about the Targaryen madness, Tim. I kind of am of different minds about it. And yeah, this is what my video looks like. So go look for that in your feed. Got some Triple Goddess talk. And yeah, thank you all. Been a beautiful audience. And we will see you next Sunday at the normal time for the big fight, big joust. So that's going to be fun. Y'all looking forward to that? Yes?
Oh yeah, I'm dreading it, but I'm so excited. I absolutely can't wait. And we have to wait a little bit extra for it as well, since obviously the Super Bowl is this Sunday. So
the Super Bowl. I don't have a pick, by the way. I'm not tuned in enough. I'm going to watch it, but I don't know. I don't have a pick for y'all.
My brother is a huge Patriots fan, so if they lose, he'll be sad. So I guess I'm going to begrudgingly root for the Patriots.
Estella's channel, Calbert, is called Estella Graves. And again, it is linked right in the description. You can see her name in blue. It's got the hyperlink text, top line of the description. And so that's the easy way to find her channel. Or you can type in Estella Graves and it'll come right up. Yes. So thank you, folks. And we will see you next Sunday.